Hello, I guess we'd all like to live in a world full of truth, justice, and beauty. Hello, my name's Maria Schmitz. Today I'd like to talk about two of several soft skills in which I see parallels. I wrote this article years ago for the Hochschule Mainz, but I'd also like to say something about peace literacy. Why are we peace analphabets? There are 7 types of peace literacy according to Paul K. Chappell. First of all, literacy in our shared humanity, literacy in the art of living, literacy in the art of waging peace, that is, how do we make peace happen, literacy in the art of listening, literacy in the nature of reality, how it functions, etc., literacy in our responsibility to animals, and literacy in our responsibility to creation. If we haven't learned this, how are we to practice it? He says we never think of playing golf without having learned it, but we take peace for granted. Now let's move on to parallels between effective intercultural communication and nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is a language of the heart. Effective intercultural communication presupposes the ability to create rapport between communication partners. Rapport is in turn defined by the OED dictionary as connection, that quality of heart-to-heart communication that borders on emotional affinity. Yet another dictionary attempts the definition: mesmerism, that state of mutual trust that permits influence. This in turn is reminiscent of the empathy taught in nonviolent communication. Here's an anecdote to demonstrate what is meant by a state permitting influence. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg once had a young patient who was brought to him to stop setting fires. In the course of the therapy, after being asked and having said what he found so fascinating about fires, the child was allowed to set a fire in Marshall's ashtray. They both admired the fire together, which caused the child to feel understood. In this state of empathy, the child was ready to listen to what someone else had to say about setting fires. He had reached the state where he could be, in this case, positively influenced, so as to desist from setting fires. Up to this day, his parents keep wondering how Marshall achieved this goal. This was related in his book, written in 2004, and in one of his workshops I visited back then. In addition to being a language of the heart, NVC is a process language, as is intercultural communication. Clear and effective model for communicating in a way that is cooperative, conscious, and compassionate. Neither can be learned overnight, but is the result of application and practice and more practice. NVC serves as an outgoing reminder to focus our attention on places that have the potential to yield what we are seeking, a flow between ourselves and others based on a mutual giving from the heart. The place meant here is a state of consciousness, what never ceases to be very beautiful in nonviolent communication, also known as NVC, is the saying, there is a place beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. The equivalent in effective intercultural communication is the total absence of criticism, demands, diagnoses, blaming, and value judgments. NVC guides us to reframe how we express ourselves and hear others by focusing our consciousness on what we observe, feel, need, and request. Summa summarum, to make life wonderful for ourselves and others. NVC thus has a language of its own. Effective intercultural communication teaches us to watch our wording, to prevent hot topics from escalating from the start. For example, there has to be a willingness to appropriate the use of politeness engendered in British communication, for example, rather than shun it with the excuse that it sounds unnatural or too much. Nevertheless, authenticity is the key. The form of NVC is simple, yet powerfully transformative. In the process of becoming interculturally competent, those of us who were not prone to adapting to different cultures also undergo a powerful transformation. NVC teaches us to receive critical and hostile messages without taking them personally, giving in or losing self-esteem. An understanding of the culture of others and of our own also helps us to see where others are coming from and puts us in good stead to make conscious choices about how we will respond, whether we get what we want or not. In intercultural interaction, in a business context, we will more than likely get what we want with a proper approach. The question now is whether the interculturally competent person should necessarily also be acquainted with nonviolent communication. The answer may be no. However, it would be a good point of departure in the sensitization process.